I could still hear the laughter echoing even after the candles were blown out. It wasn't the kind of laughter that warms a room. It was sharp, shallow, and heavy with judgment. My sister, Danielle, leaned across the table, her voice dripping with that familiar mockery. "Still no kids of your own yet, huh, Emma?" she said, tilting her wine glass, her smile wide enough for everyone to see. And like clockwork, the room burst into laughter. Even my mother smirked behind her napkin. I smiled back, the kind of polite, frozen smile I'd perfected over the years. Inside, I felt the old ache tug at me, the one that used to keep me awake at night. But I'd learned to hold my posture, to breathe through the burn. The pink balloons floated above the table, brushing against the soft glow of fairy lights. My niece, Abby, ran past me, giggling, frosting smudged on her cheeks. I adored her. None of this was her fault. Still, every joke about childless Emma cut deeper than anyone cared to admit. My phone buzzed against the table just then. A name flashed on the screen. Lydia H. Contract approved. A small, knowing smile tugged at my lips. They had no idea. None of them did. So I lifted my glass, pretending to toast along with their laughter, all while silently thinking, "You'll see soon enough, Danielle. You'll all see." I wasn't always this composed. There was a time when I believed approval was love, especially from my family. 5 years ago, I was 29, newly married, and utterly hopeful. My then-husband, Mark, and I had just moved into a tiny apartment outside of Portland. It smelled of new paint and takeout dinners, and I thought it was perfect. My dreams were simple back then: a home, a business idea slowly growing, maybe kids someday. But life has a way of reminding you that not every dream survives contact with reality. When the fertility tests came back uncertain, Mark's warmth began to cool, and my sister's sympathy turned to gossip. "Maybe she's too focused on her little projects," Danielle had whispered once when she thought I couldn't hear. "You know how Emma is. She can't even keep a plan alive." The day it all cracked open was Thanksgiving. I remember the scent of cinnamon pie and the hum of conversation before Danielle asked, in front of everyone, if I'd finally managed to get pregnant yet. The laughter that followed stung worse than the question. My hands trembled as I set my fork down, feeling the weight of 100 unsaid words choking me. Later that night, after everyone left, my grandmother found me crying on the porch. She wrapped her shawl around my shoulders, soft wool, lavender-scented, and said quietly, "Don't let them define you by what you haven't created yet. Some of us are meant to build things the world can't see at first." Before she passed away, she gave me that shawl. I still have it, the only warmth that felt unconditional in that house. A week later, I packed a suitcase. Mark didn't try to stop me, and as the front door clicked shut behind me, I whispered to myself, if I can't build a family the way they expect, I'll build a life that. Starting over at 30 felt like standing on the edge of a cliff with no parachute, just faith. I moved into a studio apartment in Seattle. It had creaky floors, a leaky faucet, and a window that overlooked a brick wall. But it was mine. For the first time, every inch of space was a reflection of my independence, not a reminder of what I lacked. By day, I worked as an assistant at a marketing firm. By night, I freelanced copywriting, design work, anything that kept the lights on. The nights were long, the coffee bitter, and the silence, sometimes unbearable. But every time I doubted myself, I'd wrap Grandma's lavender-scented shawl around my shoulders. It reminded me that comfort didn't have to come from people who pitied me. One evening, after sending out what felt like my 100th proposal, I got an email from Lydia Harrington, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who owned a rising boutique consulting firm. She had seen my portfolio and wanted to hire me for a small branding project. That single project turned into 3 more, then 6. And within a year, Lydia offered to mentor me, not just as a freelancer, but as a businesswoman. "You've got something most people don't," she told me over black coffee one morning. "You understand people's stories. That's what makes brands come alive." Under her guidance, I learned to pitch, negotiate, and lead. I worked through exhaustion, heartbreak, and self-doubt. I built my company, Storyline Studio, out of a single laptop and a rented desk in a shared workspace. The first time I landed a six-figure client, I sat in my tiny apartment and cried, not because of the money, but because for once, I didn't need validation to feel worthy. But I kept my success quiet. I posted polite updates online, busy with projects or working with new clients. Nothing flashy. My family assumed I was scraping by, still finding myself. Danielle once commented under a photo of my office mug, "Maybe try finding a husband instead," winking face. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Within 3 years, Storyline Studio had grown into a nationwide brand consultancy. I bought an office downtown, glass walls, open space, and a skyline view that looked like possibility itself. Lydia joined as a partner, and we hired a team of 20 creative women, most of them people who had been told they were too emotional or not leadership material. Still, when family called, I deflected. I let them think I was just doing okay. Because success, I realized, was a kind of silence, one you don't need to explain. So when that notification pinged at my niece's birthday party, Lydia H. Contract approved. It wasn't just another deal. It was confirmation that the girl they laughed at had built an empire, one they still couldn't see coming. 2 weeks after Abby's birthday, my sister called. Her tone was unusually sweet, the kind of sugar that hides something sour. "Hey,
we're in town this weekend," she said.
"Thought we could drop by your place for lunch? Mom's been worried you're alone a lot." I smiled at the irony. "Sure," I said. "Come by Saturday. Noon." When Saturday arrived, the sky was clear, the kind of pale blue that makes glass sparkle. My office, or as most assumed my apartment, occupied the entire 27th floor of a downtown high-rise. I'd intentionally kept my family out of that world. But today I was done hiding. As the elevator doors opened, Danielle stepped out first, heels clicking against marble. She froze mid-step. "Wait, this is your place?" she asked, glancing around the open space, the sunlight spilling through floor-to-ceiling windows, the sleek furniture, the soft hum of jazz from the speakers. "Part of it," I said casually, pouring coffee into porcelain mugs. "Technically, it's my company's headquarters." My mother trailed behind her, clutching her purse like she'd stepped into a museum she didn't belong in. "Emma, this is beautiful," she whispered, touching the edge of a modern art piece on the wall, one of the first I ever bought. They followed me into the conference area. The long oak table gleamed, surrounded by framed photos, my team at client launches, our feature in Forbes Women in Business, a signed letter from Lydia that read, "To the woman who turned her pain into power." Danielle squinted at one of the plaques. "Storyline Studio. CEO, Emma Collins." She turned slowly. "Wait, that's you?" I nodded. "It's been me for 5 years now." The silence that followed was exquisite, thick, disbelieving, fragile. My mother sat down as if her knees couldn't hold her. Danielle blinked, her lips parting soundlessly. "All those times you said you were busy, you meant this?" she asked. I shrugged lightly. "Yes." I wasn't hiding. I just stopped explaining myself to people who preferred to laugh. I motioned toward the panoramic view, the skyline glittering beyond the windows. "This office employs 20 women," I continued. "Most of them told they'd never make it, too emotional, too inexperienced, too soft. I built this so women like us never have to apologize for wanting more." Danielle's voice cracked slightly. "But why didn't you tell us?" I met her eyes. "Because you wouldn't have listened. You only believed in me when you thought I fit your idea of success. Wife, mother, dependent. The moment I didn't, I became a joke." My mother's eyes welled up. "We didn't mean to." "Yes, you did," I said gently. "You meant to remind me of what I didn't have. But you forgot to see what I was becoming." For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the faint clink of Danielle's bracelet trembling against the glass table. Finally, I walked to a framed photo on my shelf, Grandma, smiling with her shawl around her shoulders. "She used to say," I whispered, "some of us are meant to build things the world can't see at first." Danielle's eyes dropped. "Emma, I didn't know." "I know," I said quietly. That's why I invited you here. So you could finally see. I stood there, composed, proud, not gloating, just free. For once, the silence in the room wasn't cold. It was reverent. They used to laugh because I had no children. Now they looked at me like they'd just met the woman. Danielle sat there, eyes glistening as if she couldn't decide whether to apologize or defend herself. My mother dabbed at her tears with a tissue, her lipstick smudging slightly. For years, I had pictured this moment, the one where I finally spoke without fear of being dismissed. But now that it was here, I didn't feel cruel satisfaction. I felt calm. I took a breath and said softly, I'm not angry anymore, but I am different now. And if you want to be part of my life, there have to be some new rules. My mother looked up. Rules? Yes, I said. Conditions, if you want to call them that. I turned to Danielle first. You don't get to measure me or any woman by whether or not she has children. You have a beautiful family, Danny. But that doesn't make you more complete than me. We just chose different kinds of creation. Danielle's chin trembled. I didn't realize how much it hurt you. You didn't want to realize, I corrected gently. You liked the story where I was the one who failed. It made you feel safe. Then I faced my mother. And, Mom, I know your teasing came from habit, from what your generation believed success should look like. But that cycle ends here. You don't get to tell Abby, or me, that our worth depends on marriage or motherhood. Not anymore. My mother nodded slowly, her voice barely above a whisper. You're right, Emma. I see it now. You made something of yourself, something big. We were just too blind to see it growing. I smiled faintly. You don't owe me praise. Just understanding. That's all I ever wanted. Danielle exhaled shakily. I want to make it right, Em. I really do. Then start by supporting other women the way you never supported me. Speak up when people joke like you used to. Show Abby what strength looks like. Not perfection, but grace. I could see something shift in her expression, like she was finally meeting me as an equal, not a mirror she needed to distort. Then, after a long pause, I added, I'll invite you both to our next launch event. Storyline Studio is expanding into New York. We're opening a women's leadership foundation, grants, mentorships, the works. I want Abby to see that. Danielle blinked, stunned. A foundation? Emma, that's incredible. It's time, I said. I've spent years building something that helps women be seen for what they can do, not what they should be doing. I poured another round of coffee, steady, unshaken. The air between us was lighter now, not perfectly healed, but real. For years, I said quietly, I let your laughter define me. Now, I define what you remember. They both nodded, silent. For once, they were listening, not to argue, not to pity, but to understand. And that was worth more than any apology. A few months later, we hosted the Storyline Women's Leadership launch in New York, chandeliers glowing above rows of women in sharp suits, laughter echoing from a place of belonging, not mockery. My speech was short, heartfelt, and trembling just slightly at the edges. As I stepped off the stage, I saw them, Danielle, Mom, and Abby, seated in the front row. Danielle was wiping her eyes, mascara smudged, clapping like her palms might catch fire. Mom looked smaller somehow, humbled, proud, finally at peace. And Abby, sweet, bright-eyed Abby, waved at me with both hands, her little voice calling out, Aunt Emma, you did it. Afterward, Danielle hugged me, holding on longer than I expected. I used to think your life looked lonely, she whispered. But now I see it's full. It is, I said simply. Just full in a different way. Later that night, when everyone left, I stood by the window of my hotel suite overlooking the city, the same skyline I once dreamed of through that tiny apartment window years ago. The lights shimmered like promises I had finally kept to myself. I reached into my bag and pulled out Grandma's shawl. The lavender scent had faded, but its comfort hadn't. I draped it over my shoulders and closed my eyes. Her words echoed softly in my mind. Some of us are meant to build things the world can't see at first. Now the world could see. And more importantly, I could. The laughter that once defined my pain had turned into the background music of my triumph. I wasn't childless Emma anymore. I was Emma Collins, founder, leader, creator of something bigger than myself. As the city lights blurred beneath a thin veil of tears, I smiled, whispering the truth I'd waited years to own. They once mocked me for not giving birth, but I've given life to something even greater. I pressed the shawl close to my chest and whispered one final line, the kind that would echo softly in a voiceover. At my niece's birthday, they laughed because I had no children. Tonight, they clap for the woman who gave birth to her own destiny. And with that, I turned off the lights, not to end the story, but to begin a new one. Bottom of form.